Nikolay Lossky. Nikolay Onufriyevich Lossky, / ɛlski/ 6th of December 1870, January 24, 1965, also known as N.O. Lossky, was a Russian philosopher, representative of Russian idealism, intuitionist epistemology, personalism, libertarianism, ethics and axiology, value theory. He gave his philosophical system the name intuitive-personalism. Born in Latvia, he spent his working life in St. Petersburg, New York, and Paris. He was the father of the influential Christian theologian Vladimir Lossky. Life. Lossky was born in Krasnova, Latvia, then in the Russian Empire. His father, Onufriyevich Lossky, had Belarusian roots. His grandfather was a Greek Catholic Uniate priest, and was an Orthodox Christian. His mother Adela Hypertsalika was Polish and Roman Catholic. He was expelled from school for propagating atheism. Lossky undertook postgraduate studies in Germany under Wilhelm Windelband, Wilhelm Wundt and G. E. Mola, receiving a master's degree in 1903 and a doctorate in 1907. Returning to Russia, he became a lecturer and subsequently assistant professor of philosophy in St. Petersburg. Lossky called for a Russian religious and spiritual reawakening while pointing out post-revolution excesses. At the same time, Lossky survived an elevator accident that nearly killed him, which caused him to turn back to the Russian Orthodox Church under the direction of Father Pavel Florensky. These criticisms and conversion cost Lossky his professorship of philosophy and led to his exile abroad, on the famed Philosophers ship, in 1922, from the Soviet Union as a counter-revolutionary. Lossky was invited to Prague by Tomas Masaryk and became professor at the Russian University of Prague at Bratislava, in Czechoslovakia. Being part of a group of ex-Marxists, including Nikolai Berdyaev, Sergei Bulgakov, Gershon Sohn, Peter Bernardovich Struve, Semyon Frank, Lossky, though a Fabian socialist, contributed to the group's symposium named Veki or Signposts. He also helped the Harvard sociologist Peter M. Sorokin with his social and cultural dynamics. In 1947 N. Lossky took a position teaching theology at St. Vladimir's Orthodox Theological Seminary, an Orthodox Christian seminary in Crestwood, New York. In 1961, after the death of his famous son, theologian Vladimir Lossky, N. Lossky went to France. The last 4 years of his life were spent in illness there. Philosophy. Intuitivism and Slavophilism. Lossky was one of the preeminent Russian neo-idealists of his day. Lossky's gnoseology is called intuitivist-personalism and had in part adapted the Hegelian dialectical approach of first addressing a problem in thought in terms of its expression as a duality or dichotomy. Once the problem is expressed as a dichotomy, the two opposing ideas are fused in order to transcend the dichotomy. This transition is expressed in the concept of sobornost, integrality or mystical communal union. Lossky also followed and developed his ontological and gnoseological interpretation of objective reality from Christian Neoplatonism based on the patristic fathers. This, along with Origin and the works of Russian mystics Kirevsky and Khomyakov and the later works of V. Solovyov among many others. Understanding and comprehension coming from addressing an object, as though part of the external world, something that joins the consciousness of the perceiving subject directly, noesis, insight, then becoming memory. Intuitionism is the foundation of all noema or processes of consciousness. In that human consciousness comprehends the essence or noumena of an object and the object's external phenomenon, which are then assembled into a complete organic whole called experience. Much of an object's defining and understanding in consciousness is not derived discursively but rather intuitively or instinctively, as an object has no meaning outside of the whole of existence. Lossky summed up this concept in the term all is immanent in all. As such, much of reality is uncreated or uncaused, is irrational, or random, see libertarianism below, and cannot be validated rationally, i.e. freedom and love as energy are uncaused, uncreated. Therefore, consciousness in its interaction with reality operates not strictly as rational, only partially. Much of consciousness operates intuitively. This is intuitively done by the new. The new consciousness, or the focal point of the psyche, is the organic connection to the object and therefore the material world as a whole. The psyche here is the sensory input from the physical body to the inner being, mind or consciousness. This interaction causing different levels of maturing consciousness over time, reinterpretation. As a dynamic retention, experience constitutes the process of learning, i.e. reflective differentiation. Phenomenology and axiology. Consequently, the existence of objects cannot be completely expressed with logic or words, nor validated with knowledge, due to objects having a supernatural essence or substance as their composition. Supernatural in an ancient Greek philosophy or Orthodox Christian understanding of supernatural as uncreated or uncaused. Following an Orthodox Christian substance theory, see Gregory Palamas, energy and potential do not have ontology without a sentient agent, i.e. idealism. Lossky coined the term substantive agent to validate that matter as well as energy are uncreated in substance, essence. This validation is part of gnoseology or Christian mysticism, orthodoxy, as opposed to the Russian materialist and nihilist position that states that objects have no thing in itself or no essence, substance behind their phenomenon, as in positivism. Lossky based his intuitivism on gnoseology in that he taught first principles as uncreated or uncaused. Lossky's axiology was the teaching of first principles dialectically. Russian philosophy based on Soloviev is expressed metaphysically in that the essence of an object can be akin to noumenon, opposed to its appearance or phenomenon, but it can have random characteristics to its being or essence, characteristically Sambabekos. This is the basis of V. Soloviev's arguments against positivism, which are the cornerstone of Russian philosophy contained in Soloviev's Against the Positivists. The validation, immediate apprehension, of truth, value and existence all being intuitive is expressed by Aristotle's noesis. Each event having value or existence because of substantive agents being engaged in the event, via neo-idealism, giving the event value and existence. Sobornostem the world is an organic whole. One of the main points of Lossky's or ontology is, the world is an organic whole as understood by human consciousness. Intuition, insight, noesis in Greek, is the direct contemplation of objects, and furthermore the assembling of the entire set of cognition from sensory perception into a complete and undivided organic whole, i.e. experience. This expression of consciousness is without thought, raw and uninterpreted by the rational faculty in the mind. Thus the mind's dianoia, rational or logical faculty, in its deficiency, finiteness or inconclusiveness, due to logic's incompleteness, causes the perceived conflict between the objectivism, materialism, external world, and idealism, spiritual, inner experience, forms of philosophy. Where intuitive or instinctual reaction is without rational processing of the rational faculty of the mind. It is outside of comprehension via the dianoia faculty of the mind, consciousness, new. Intuition being analogous with instinctual consciousness. Intuition functions without rational or logical thought in its absorption of experience, called contemplation. Rational or logical thought via the dianoia of the new, then works in reflection as hindsight to organize experience into a comprehensible order, i.e. ontology. The memory, knowledge derived from the rationalizing faculty of the mind is called epistemological knowledge. Intuitive knowledge or gnosis, pre-processed knowledge or uninterpreted, then being made by the logical facility in the mind into history or memory. Intuition rather than the rationalization, also see Henri Bergson, whom influenced Lossky. Determining factor, it manifests as an integral factor of or during an actual conscious experience. Lossky's ontology being consistent with Leibniz's optimism expressed as the best of all possible worlds in contrast to the pessimism and nihilism of more pro-Western Russian philosophers. Lossky's work is also opposed to the pagan elements of the pagan philosophers that were an influence on his work. In that the logical faculty of the mind was only finite in a temporal sense and will eventually become infinite, by theosis. As such it seeks the infinite rather than opposes it. Lossky believed that philosophy would transcend its rational limits and manifest a mystical understanding of experience. This would include an understanding that encompasses the intuitive, irrational, philosophically, as done in stochastics, rather than the strictly pagan approach of a good deterministic force opposed to an evil irrational indeterminate force. This of course being the teaching of Christian faith as a philosophical principle, called free will, and intrinsic component to conscious existence, one that manifests sobornost in the transcending of the pagan dichotomy of reason versus superstition or determinism versus indeterminism. Knowledge and memory. Once knowledge is abstracted from conscious experience, it becomes epistemological knowledge and is then stored in an ontological format in the mind, the format itself a priori. The manipulation of memory and or reapplication of memory as knowledge as post-processed knowledge, i.e. epistemology. Lossky's ontology as an agent's, the essence, expressed as being and or becoming as possible as both the person transcends time and space while being closely connected with the whole world, while in this world. Much of Lossky's working out of an ontological theory of knowledge was done in collaboration with his close friend Simon L. Frank. Metaphysical Libertarianism. Lossky as a metaphysical libertarian taught that all people have uncreated energy, Aristotle, or potential, Plotinus. This being very much in line with the vitalism of his day. Though Lossky did not strictly adhere to vitalism but rather to its predecessor monadology and its living forces, dynamis, theory. This is to contrast Leibniz's theory of monadology against Cartesian mind-body dualism. This is a rejection of vitalism and its dualism of mind and body being of different substances. For Lossky, substantive agents have potential, dynamis, and they can act. Beings have energy, from this potential. All power or potential comes from the individual. That spontaneous or organic reality structures or orders itself to reconcile opposing forces, sobornost, doing so while maintaining order and free will. Each pole of existence, the created and uncreated of gnoseology, or opposing ideologies, reaching compromise through value in existence and manifesting in a complete organic whole, sobornost. Lossky's argument that determinism cannot account for the cause of energy in the universe. Energy being a substance that cannot be created or destroyed, see the law of conservation of energy. Each agent accounting for their existence as their own dynamistic manifestation. Dynamistic manifestation as being that of act or energy derived from a Neoplatonic interpretation. Theology and Neoplatonism. Much of the theology that Lossky covers, as his own, in the book History of Russian Philosophy is in line with the Idealism of Origin. Lossky's idealism is based on Origen's, in that the relationship between the mystic, religious understanding of God and a philosophical one. There have been various stages of development in the history of the Roman East. The new is mind, rational and intuitive understanding. In Greek Christian philosophy is given the central role of understanding only when it is placed or reconciled with the heart or soul of the person. Earlier versions of Christian and Greek philosophical syncretism are in modern times referred to as Neoplatonic. An example of this can be seen in the works of Origin and his teaching on the new as to origin. All souls pre-existed with their creator in a perfect, spiritual, non-material state is new, that these minds then fell away so to pursue an individual and independent existence apart from God. Because all beings were created with absolute freedom and free will, God, not being a tyrant, would not force his creations to return to him. According to Origin, God's infinite love and respect for his creatures allowed for this. Instead, God created the material world, universe or cosmos. God then initiated the eons or history. God did this for the purpose of, through love and compassion, guiding his creations back to contemplation of his infinite, limitless mind. This was according to Origin, the perfect state. Though the specifics of this are not necessarily what Lossky taught in his theology courses, since dogma in a general sense, is what is taught as theology. Lossky also was in line with the common distinctions of Orthodox Christian theology. Like the essence-energies distinction, for example. Though Lossky did pursue a position of reconciliation based on mutual cooperation between East and West. Lossky taught this cooperation as organic and or spontaneous order, integrality, and unity called sobornost. Sobornost can also be translated to mean Catholic. Influence. In biographical reminiscences recorded in the early 1960s, philosophical novelist and objectivism founder Ayn Rand recalled only Lossky among her teachers at the University of Petrograd or University of St. Petersburg, reporting that she studied classical philosophy with him prior to his removal from his teaching post by the Soviet regime. Lossky also influenced the theologian philosopher, Professor Joseph Papon, whose work Doctrina de Bono Perfecto, esc systematen, Lossky personalistico applicatio, Leiden, E. J. Brill, 1946, was listed among the 100 leading scholarly works of the 20th century. Papon's volume is the most profound study of Lossky's work in relation to Christian teachings in Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy. After teaching at the University of Notre Dame, Papon founded the Theology Institute at Villanova University. He edited publications from the first 6 symposia, 1968 to 1974. The idea of sobornost was prominent in the volume, The Church and Human Society at the Threshold of the Third Millennium, Villanova University Press, 1974. His own in-depth scholarly contribution was entitled, From Collegiality and Sobornost to Church Unity. The Dean of Harvard Divinity School, Christer Stendahl gave his highest praise to Papon for his efforts in overcoming the divisions separating Christians. It gladdens me that you will be honored at the time of having completed a quarter-century of teaching us all. Your vision of and your dogged insistence on a truly Catholic ecumenical future of the Church and theology has been one of the forces that have broken through the man-made walls of partition. Transcendence and Immanence, Reconstruction in the Light of Process Thinking, ed. Joseph Armenti, St. Meinrad the Abbey Press, 1972, p. 5. At the time of his death, United States President Ronald Reagan, along with theologians, philosophers, poets, and dignitaries from around the world, wrote to Dr. Joseph Armenti praising the life and work of Reverend Joseph Papon. See, President Reagan leads international homage to Father Papon in Memorial, Jednota, 1983, page 8. Quotes. From the Introduction of Value and Existence. Selected Bibliography and Existence. Selected Bibliography and Existence.